These abandoned beaches hide secrets that will shock you. Stay till the end, because what we uncover today is unlike anything you've ever seen. Have you ever wondered what secrets lie in places abandoned for decades? Today, I'm taking you to 5 beaches that time forgot, where silence hides stories of mystery, loss, and things you won't believe. Stay with me. What we discover here is terrifying, unforgettable, and unlike anything you've ever seen. If you want to uncover more haunted secrets and explore abandoned places with me, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the adventure. 1. Varosha, Cyprus. I first saw Varosha from the other side of the fence, standing on the empty road leading to Famagusta. The sun was harsh that afternoon, reflecting off the broken glass and concrete ruins ahead, yet nothing could hide the eerie silence that wrapped the city. From a distance, it looked like a normal seaside resort, tall hotels lined neatly along the shore. But the moment I stepped closer, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. In 1974, this place had been alive with laughter, music, and the smell of the Mediterranean cooking. Families flocked to the beaches, sunbathing, swimming, taking endless photographs. I imagine children running along the sand, their bare feet kicking up golden grains as parents relaxed under umbrellas. But that summer changed everything. When the Turkish invasion happened, the residents were told to leave temporarily, to return within days. Many packed lightly, assuming it was just a short trip. Days turned into weeks, weeks into decades, and those who left never returned. Walking through the empty streets, I could almost hear faint echoes of their lives. A chair knocked over in a hotel room, a rusting bicycle leaning against a wall, tattered curtains swaying through broken windows, it all felt frozen in time. I crouched near a window of an old cafe and stared at the sand outside, imagining someone pouring coffee, laughing with friends, then vanishing in an instant. The silence pressed against me, heavy and almost alive, like the city itself remembered the people who had vanished. The hotels, once towering symbols of luxury, now looked like hollow shells. Walls crumbling, balconies hanging dangerously, windows gaping open like empty eyes. I stepped into one of the lobbies, dust thick on the floors. A calendar still hung on a wall, frozen on August 1974. I could feel the weight of absence pressing on me, a haunting that didn't need ghosts. Just memories of lives abruptly interrupted. As I walked toward the beach, the sand was warm, and the sea shimmered like it always had. From the water, Varosha might have looked beautiful, almost inviting. But the closer I got, the more the ruins reminded me of its story. I imagined the families, the laughter, the footsteps, all swallowed by time and politics. Every building, every empty room seemed to hold a whisper, a sigh of the past. The wind picked up, rustling through broken shutters. I shivered, not because of cold, but because of the weight of the place. Varosha was not haunted by spirits, really, it was haunted by absence, by frozen time, by thousands of lives that vanished in a moment. And as I left, glancing back one last time, I understood that some places terrify not because of what you see, but because of what is missing, forever echoing in silence. 2. Bikini Atoll, Marshall Islands. When I first landed on Bikini Atoll, the ocean stretched endlessly, a deep, unsettling blue. From the boat, the island looked like paradise, palm trees swaying gently, white sand sparkling under the sun. But as I got closer, a strange heaviness settled over me. Something about the silence felt unnatural. I remembered reading that this beauty hid a terrifying past, one that had displaced an entire community and changed the island forever. In the 1940s, the United States chose Bikini Atoll for nuclear testing. The local Bikinians were told they were leaving temporarily, to let the world prepare for the good of mankind. Families packed lightly, believing they would return soon. But decades passed, and they never came back. Between 1946 and 1958, 23 nuclear devices were detonated, each explosion shaking the island, vaporizing parts of it, and sending radioactive fallout across the ocean. I tried to imagine the bright flash, the fireball, the deafening roar, it was almost impossible. Stepping onto the sand, I felt the remnants of that violence. Rusted metal fragments lay scattered, skeletal remains of targets and ships used during testing. The waves lapped gently at the shore, calm and inviting, yet I could feel the ghosts of fear lingering in the wind. I thought about the children who once ran here, their laughter now swallowed by history. Walking past the empty ruins of old housing and coconut trees, I could almost hear whispers, the faint memory of footsteps, the echo of lives uprooted overnight. The island itself seemed alive, not with people, but with memory. Coconut crabs scuttled across the sand, giant and cautious, as if even nature remembered what had happened. I wandered toward the abandoned school building. Its walls were cracked, the roof half collapsed. Desks remained in place, covered with dust and mold. I imagined a teacher leaving mid-lesson, chalk still on the blackboard, children frozen in the moment. That absence, that sudden stop of life, was more haunting than anything I could see. I spent hours exploring, watching the sun paint long shadows across the broken island. From every angle, it looked peaceful, deceptively beautiful. But I knew the truth. Bikini Atoll is haunted by history, by power, by explosions that reshaped not just the island, but the lives of its people forever. No spirits, no monsters, just silence, stillness, and the weight of absence. As I left, rowing back toward the open sea, I glanced one last time at the island. The waves glittered like diamonds, the palm trees swayed in the wind, and the sand was perfect. Yet underneath it all, I felt the shadow of loss, of a paradise stolen, and the invisible scars that would never heal. Bikini Atoll stays with you because it is beautiful, terrifying, and profoundly human all at once. 3 Hashima Island, Japan. I first saw Hashima Island from a ferry, a dark silhouette rising out of the gray sea. From a distance, it looked like a massive battleship, silent and unmoving. The closer we got, the more the details emerged. Rows of tall, concrete buildings, all worn and cracked, windows empty, balconies dangling. I felt my chest tighten. It was hard to imagine that thousands of people had once lived here, laughed here, and called this concrete jungle home. Stepping onto the island, the wind hit me with a salty, damp chill. Every step echoed across the empty streets, bouncing off the hollow shells of apartments. I could almost hear faint whispers of children running, women calling for dinner, men returning from the coal mine. In the 1950s, Hashima was home to over 5,000 miners and their families, all packed into a tiny island just over half a square kilometer. Now, the silence was absolute, broken only by the wind and the distant slap of waves against the rocks. Walking through a narrow alley, I saw the rusted frame of a bicycle leaning against a wall. It had been left decades ago, its tires gone, its paint faded. I imagined the child who rode it, pausing mid-laugh, never knowing the island would one day become empty. Up above, broken windows stared at me like hollow eyes, and I felt a strange sensation, as if the buildings themselves were watching. I stepped into one of the apartment blocks. The stairs creaked dangerously under my weight. Dust coated every surface. A torn calendar clung to a wall, frozen on a day in 1974. I ran my fingers over the pages, imagining families leaving in a hurry, packing what little they could carry. They never returned. Time had stopped here. Every object, every crack in the wall seemed to whisper stories of abrupt endings and lost lives. The most haunting moment came when I entered a former classroom. Desks were still aligned in rows, graffiti etched across the walls, and a single notebook lay open on the floor. Its pages were yellowed, sketches of ships and boats still visible. I imagined the teacher leaving mid-lesson, children frozen in their seats, the world outside collapsing. The weight of that absence made me shiver. Hashima is haunted, not by spirits, but by memories, by the lives it swallowed silently. As the sun began to set, shadows stretched across the island, deepening its abandoned appearance. The wind whistled through the broken corridors, and for a moment, it almost sounded like whispers. I left slowly, glancing back at the towering concrete ruins. They were beautiful, terrifying, and unbearably human all at once. Hashima Island had a story etched into every wall, every broken step, every hollow window, and I felt privileged, and yet unsettled, to witness it. For Salton Sea, California, USA. I first saw the Salton Sea from the highway, a vast silver lake stretching farther than I could see. At first glance, it looked calm, peaceful even, with the sun sparkling off its surface. But as I drove closer, the abandoned houses, rusted trailers, and empty docks along the shoreline started to appear, and something about the place felt wrong. There was a heaviness in the air, a silence that wasn't natural. Stepping onto the sand, I noticed the smell first. A mix of salt, decay, and something almost chemical. The ground was uneven, littered with broken glass, driftwood, and rusted metal. It was easy to imagine the families who once lived here, vacationing by the water, children running along the beach, laughter echoing in the air. But the Salton Sea had turned this paradise into a graveyard of memories. Rising salinity, pollution, and environmental disaster slowly forced people to leave, leaving behind empty homes and forgotten dreams. As I walked along a deserted pier, the wind picked up, carrying faint, eerie creaks from the broken wood beneath my feet. I could almost hear whispers, or maybe it was my imagination, the sound of lives interrupted. A broken swing swayed gently in the breeze, metal chains groaning like soft moans. I paused, feeling a chill. The silence here was not peaceful, it was heavy, haunted by absence. I wandered through an abandoned motel, its doors hanging on rusted hinges. Faded brochures still sat on the counter, showing happy families on boating trips. The chairs inside were tipped over, thick layers of dust covering the floor. I crouched and ran my fingers over a brochure, imagining a family leaving in a hurry, never to return. The walls seemed to absorb every sound, echoing my footsteps as if reminding me that life had long vanished from here. Down by the shoreline, I noticed dead fish scattered across the sand. Their eyes were cloudy, their bodies bloated from the saline water. Even the birds seemed cautious, circling the area warily before flying off. I stood there, staring at the calm water, and felt the real horror, the kind that comes not from ghosts, but from watching a thriving place slowly die and knowing it cannot be fixed. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the beach, the abandoned homes and broken docks looked like silhouettes in a dream. The Salton Sea seemed beautiful from a distance, yet closer up, it was terrifying, a reminder of human neglect and the fragility of life. Walking back to my car, I kept looking over my shoulder. The water glittered, the wind whispered, and I knew this place was haunted, not by spirits, but by everything it had lost, forever frozen in silence. 5 D-Day Landing Beaches, France. I first set foot on Omaha Beach just before sunrise. The sky was still gray, and the mist rolled gently over the sand, giving the coastline an eerie, almost unreal look. At first, it seemed calm, peaceful even, but as I walked closer, the weight of history pressed down on me. Every grain of sand seemed to carry a story of courage, fear, and unimaginable loss. I imagined the morning of June 6, 1944. Thousands of soldiers landing under fire, bullets ripping through the air, artillery shaking the ground. I could almost hear faint echoes, the distant roar of explosions mingling with the wind. Standing there, it was almost impossible to breathe, the silence of today clashing with the chaos that once consumed this beach. Walking along the shoreline, I noticed the remnants of bunkers and concrete fortifications, partially buried in sand. Touching the cold, rough walls, I could feel the tension that had gripped the men hiding inside. I pictured a young soldier pressed against this very wall, mud caked on his uniform, heart racing, praying he would survive. It was terrifying to realize that each structure was not just concrete, but a witness to human struggle and fear. The beach itself seemed alive in a strange way. Seagulls circled lazily, their cries sounding almost like faint whispers, carrying the memory of the past. Rusted fragments of landing craft lay scattered along the sand, twisted by time and waves, silent witnesses to the storm of war. I picked up a small piece of jagged metal and felt the weight of history in my hand. Every object, every shadow seemed to hold the echo of lives interrupted too soon. I wandered toward the cliffs where soldiers had climbed under fire. Plaques marked the spots where units had fought, where many had fallen, and where others had been honored. I knelt at one and traced the engraved names with my fingers. I felt a strange connection, as if the weight of their bravery pressed on me. The air felt thick, almost alive with memory, as if the ghosts of the past were watching quietly, not in anger, but in solemn remembrance. As the sun began to rise higher, shadows stretched across the beach, deepening the cracks and crevices of the abandoned bunkers. The waves lapped gently against the shore, sparkling deceptively beautiful, masking the blood, fear, and courage that had once soaked the sand. I walked back slowly, looking over my shoulder one last time. Omaha Beach was serene now, yet it was haunted, not by spirits, but by memory, by history, by the echoes of thousands who had given everything here. And standing there, I realized the true horror and beauty of this place. It terrifies not because of what is present, but because of what it has held, what it has witnessed, and what will forever linger in silence.